Recall that peculiar athletic guard selected after Weemy, whom everyone claimed could surpass even Scoot Henderson. He was touted as the reincarnation of D. Rose, John Wall, and Jay Morant, all rolled into one. While many believed he'd be the top pick in most drafts, Scoot had a rather tumultuous rookie season, to say the least. Now, in his second year on one of the league's weakest teams, Scoot Henderson appears to have regressed. His rookie season surprised a lot of us, averaging 14 points and 5 assists with 3.4 turnovers, while shooting 38% from the field and 32% from three. Yikes. While he struggled during his inaugural season, it's worth noting that several great players have started out poorly, particularly at his position. Kyle Lowry took several years to find his stride, and Darius Garland was initially one of the league's least effective players before blossoming into an all-star. The situation wasn't exactly rosy, however. Given that he's only 19, it's tough to declare it entirely hopeless. Regarding this season, Scoot's on-court production hasn't improved, and examining his averages indicates that the Scoot Henderson challenge has only intensified. His current averages of 11 points and 5 assists with shooting splits of 39% and 31% represent no progress. From what was the most unsatisfactory rookie campaign last year, Scoot has statistically declined as a player. The statistics reveal a significant red flag indicating that the gaps in his game are more pronounced than we initially thought and are not improving. When you examine Scoot more thoroughly, the situation appears even worse. What on earth is happening? The only way to address Scoot's developmental challenges is to recognize where I believe the issues truly started. Henderson made a revolutionary choice by joining the G League Ignite at just 17 years old. Established in 2020, the Ignite program aimed to provide an alternative route to the NBA, emphasizing player development and exposure while compensating players in the meantime, instead of having them go to college. However, its success rate has been, at best, inconsistent, with past prospects like Jonathan Kuminga and Jalen Green being the bright spots, even as they remain severely underdeveloped for the NBA. While Kuminga is skilled, he has yet to harness his full potential. On the other hand, Jalen Green, despite his remarkable talent, has stagnated statistically and, in my view, is somewhat of a headache in the NBA. This guy annoys me, and it's not just him. There are several players like that, high scoring averages combined with low efficiency, poor assist-to-turnover ratios, and subpar defensive skills. Green's game, much like Scoot's, was underdeveloped when entering the NBA. As we sit here now, Scoot is struggling to gain momentum. His time in the G League during his first year was a mixed experience. He averaged 14 points per game and received accolades for his athleticism and explosiveness. However, a more in-depth analysis revealed troubling gaps in his game. His shooting was particularly poor, with a three-point percentage of only 17.7% or 4 for 23 for the season, and his assist-to-turnover ratio below 1. 5 raised concerns about his decision-making, which is typical for a young player. The following season showed some progress, as Henderson's scoring increased to 17 points per game, but fundamental issues persisted. His skill set remained largely unrefined, and his statistics indicated more of a carryover than substantial advancement. The G League is simply low-quality basketball. It's not about developing within a system, but rather individual performance. Many players are veterans on the verge of making millions, preferring a chance in the NBA over any G League accolades or victories, essentially playing at an amateur level rather than attending college. Scoot's growth in this environment is reality. The G League isn't great. Was a poor idea with good intentions that resulted in many players' games being compromised due to their participation, while Scoot's quick decision-making and playmaking was influenced by it. Regardless, Scoot had already generated a lot of excitement around himself, primarily due to a few highlights showcasing him dunking on G Leaguers. He created significant buzz. Standing with a 6'9" wingspan and advertised to have John Morant-level athleticism, it was believed he could excel defensively. His finishing abilities were presumed to be outstanding, largely based on visual assessments, and from what I gathered, his mid-range jump shot hovered around 50% with his free throw percentage near 75%. Thus, there were assumptions he could at least be comparable to a John Morant-level three-point shooter. Henderson entered the 2023 NBA draft as a leading prospect mainly because of his physical abilities and glimpses of potential, being seen as the second best prospect in the draft and a possible franchise cornerstone, with some even considering him as a sleeper to become the best player in the class. However, underlying concerns about his readiness lingered due to his limited experience and the absence of a refined game, having spent 2 years in the adult AAU, increasing his draft risk. Draft night was crucial for Henderson as the Charlotte Hornets, holding the second overall pick, chose Brandon Miller instead of Scoot, citing fit concerns for the team. The Charlotte Hornets already had a star point guard in LaMelo Ball, and congratulations to Hornets fans. I know things are tough right now, but Brandon Miller was certainly the superior choice over a strange LaMelo shooting guard lineup. This decision allowed Scoot Henderson to become available for the Portland Trail Blazers, a team restructuring after letting go of longtime franchise player Damian Lillard. The Blazers viewed Henderson as the ideal fit to fill the point guard gap and entrusted him with the offense from the very start. Expectations were high, with many anticipating he would have an immediate influence and even compete for Rookie of the Year honors, while Wembanyama's minutes were more restricted and Smith was nursing an injury. Unfortunately, Henderson's debut in the NBA was far from the dream many envisioned. His first 2 quarters in the league went without a score, setting the stage for a tough start to his rookie season. In his initial games, he averaged merely 8 points per game, with a disappointing shooting percentage of 35% and 2 for 21 from beyond the arc. His assist-to-turnover ratio was worrying at 1-to-1, and he found himself struggling defensively while accumulating fouls. To complicate matters, he suffered a right ankle injury that kept him out for several games. These difficulties revealed significant flaws in his game and raised doubts about the scouting assessment that labeled him as NBA ready. One of the most obvious issues has been Scoot's finishing ability, which had been praised as a strength during his pre-draft evaluations in the NBA. However, he has found it difficult to adjust to the larger size and athleticism of defenders, successfully converting only 50 attempts at the rim, which has remained consistent this year. This player has truly struggled against NBA rim protection. During his rookie season, it became evident that he wasn't the finisher we anticipated. It's not just about touch around the basket or skills near the rim, although that plays a significant role. He's simply not as athletically gifted as we once believed. Perhaps just a few highlight dunks in the G League misled us into thinking otherwise. I've never witnessed such a glaring case of misjudgment in scouting before. Scoot is an undersized guard at 6'2" on a good day, and his game primarily takes place under the rim. There are effective finishers below the rim, but that's not who we envisioned Scoot Henderson to be. He was expected to be dunking on opponents in both half-court and full-court scenarios. He was meant to drive past defenders and reach the free throw line, imposing his strength on smaller forwards with his muscular build and long arms. However, this simply is not the reality. Now, Scoot's finishing struggles have been quite challenging, and it seems this has impacted him mentally. He's tried various methods to create space while driving, from hop steps to euro steps to straight bully ball. Yet, his length doesn't compensate for his height on the court. He still appears small. Throughout his rookie season, he often opted for shots from mid-range. As for the basket, where he shot an impressively poor 31%. The finishing and athleticism are probably the most significant problems with Scoot's game by themselves. Considering this guy is still a highly turnover-prone guard who didn't develop effectively in the G League, the situation worsens. Scoot relied heavily on mid-range jumpers since he struggled to finish inside like he aimed to, where he had a somewhat decent shooting percentage of 45%. However, his decision-making on the floor as a point guard resembled that of a rookie. I'm not trying to criticize his game too harshly, but even defensively, despite those long, powerful arms and big hands, he was merely average on a good day and quite a poor system defender. I realize I've been quite critical of this kid's overall performance, but I assure you there's still hope for him. Nevertheless, after his rookie season, he genuinely needs to improve. There weren't many redeeming qualities in his game. Even Darius Garland, as I mentioned earlier, struggled in the beginning of his career, but showed promise in other areas. Scoot hasn't yet utilized his talent effectively anywhere, resulting in zero productive play. His rookie year was so disappointing that they shut down the G League night, So at least something good resulted from that. They were stunting careers, and Scoot was one of them, particularly if he had chosen a more traditional collegiate path. He may not have received as much hype since the flaws in his game would have been better evaluated, giving us a clearer picture of his athletic skills. However, his comfort running the point in a system wouldn't be as lacking as it currently is. Every G League Ignite player tends to struggle because this style of play is exceedingly unproductive. The best route for American basketball players may still be going to college after their rookie season. The Blazers, having the time to develop Scoot, reduced his role this season, starting two shooting guards, Shaedon Sharpe and Anthony Simons, ahead of him, slightly limiting his chances. It's evident they don't perceive Scoot the same way they once did. Although Scoot is still averaging 26 minutes and 11 points a game, albeit with similar efficiency, the Blazers are aware of the current situation regarding Scoot. While it's premature to completely dismiss him, having seen him play in the NBA, it's clear Scoot lacks the star potential we expected from him. He was thought to be a Russell Westbrook type, with exceptional basketball IQ, but that's far from the truth. He is an undersized player with slightly above average speed, who is unlikely to become a great shooter, despite being a significant prospect for his playmaking ability, which was anticipated to be close to elite right from the start. Whether they are attempting to boost his value to move on from Scoot is still unclear. Or they're intending to develop him for long-term gains, I'm not entirely certain, but if I had to guess, I'd lean towards the latter. Even with what we've observed thus far, I believe Scoot will eventually figure things out. I know he's mostly faded from our memories, but occasionally he provides us with a memorable moment. Gradually, his game is showing improvements that may only be noticeable in the box score every few nights at most. But if you look more closely, it's definitely there. Scoot appears to be slowly understanding his role in the NBA as his shots are now coming from the right areas on the court, with a lower usage rate. At least he's settling less and starting to leverage his frame more effectively, going downhill and finding ways to get shots off at the rim. While the statistics haven't yet reflected this, the eye test indicates he's gaining some comfort in facilitating at the current pace of NBA play. As it stands, there are certainly more negatives than positives in Scoot Henderson's campaign, but I hope that at some stage he can prove me and other skeptics wrong because he still has the opportunity to do so.